Welcome back, everybody, to your daily deep dive on all things cyber and tech.
Yeah, lots to cover today, so let's just get right into it.
Sounds good. So, ransomware, it's always been a problem, but it seems like there's some new wrinkles.
Absolutely. It's gotten way more sophisticated. I mean, it's not just about encrypting data anymore.
Right.
Attackers are now really focused on data exfiltration. So they're stealing sensitive information, holding it hostage to squeeze out even bigger payouts.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
It's scary stuff. We're seeing double, triple, even quadruple extortion schemes.
Wow.
And these schemes are hitting everyone, organizations, individuals. Nobody's immune.
So is there like a recent example that kind of illustrates this trend?
Absolutely. The cryptocurrency exchange Bybit just recently got hit with a $1.5 billion heist.
Oh, wow.
The attackers were really clever. They manipulated the smart contract logic to gain control of the exchange's cold wallet.
That's a staggering amount.
It is. And what's even more alarming is there's speculation that this could be the work of the Lazarus Group.
That name rings a bell.
They're a notorious hacking outfit, and they've been linked to several other high-profile attacks, including the Femex hack.
So what does all this mean for, our listeners out there who are maybe running their own businesses or just concerned about their own data?
I think the big takeaway here is that mid-sized organizations need to be extra vigilant. They often lack dedicated security leadership and the really robust defenses that you see in larger companies.
So they're more vulnerable.
Exactly. They're prime targets.
Hmm.
So things like ransomware simulations and just strengthening your overall data protection measures are more critical than ever.
That makes sense. So it's like a wake-up call. You really got to stay ahead of this.
No doubt.
Mm.
Let's switch gears a bit and talk about open source software.
Yeah.
You familiar with Visual Studio Code?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so they have these extensions, right? Material theme free and material theme icons free, super popular.
I think I've seen those, yeah.
Nearly 9 million downloads.
Wow.
Well, it turns out they were harboring malicious code designed to steal usernames and passwords. Microsoft has since pulled the extensions and banned the developer.
That's good.
But it just highlights the fact that danger can lurk even in these seemingly harmless tools.
So what's the lesson here?
Be cautious. Always review the extensions you've installed. Be wary of updates that drastically change functionality. Something doesn't feel right. Trust your gut.
Speaking of Microsoft, they've got another issue. A critical vulnerability in their Partner Center platform, CVE 2024-49035. It's under active attack right now.
Yeah, this one's pretty serious. It's a privilege escalation flaw. Basically, attackers can gain unauthorized access without any authentication.
So they just waltz right in.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And once they're in, it opens the door to data breaches, lateral movement across networks, you name it.
And the worst part is this vulnerability exploits the Power App's backend.
Right. Which means there's a real concern about shared infrastructure risks and the potential for a much wider impact.
So this could be pretty widespread.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It's a situation to watch closely, for sure.
It seems like no sector is safe from these cyber attacks. Let's talk about manufacturing for a second.
Yeah, they're definitely struggling. A recent report found that 80% of manufacturing companies experienced an increase in security incidents just last year.
80%?
Yet only 45% are taking adequate precautions.
That's a huge gap.
It is, and it comes down to a few things. Operational technology OT networks are becoming a prime target fueled by geopolitical tensions. Plus, we're seeing new threat groups emerge at an alarming rate.
So the threat landscape is constantly evolving.
Absolutely. And it's not just manufacturing. Healthcare is facing its own set of challenges.
Yeah, I've heard about some vulnerabilities in their systems.
Right. Saya recently disclosed some ICS vulnerabilities that are impacting both healthcare and public health. It's worrying because these flaws are in critical systems like RTUs, PLCs, and SCADA systems.
What would that lead to?
All kinds of bad stuff. Disruption of essential operations, compromise of sensitive medical data, even system failures.
Okay, that's scary.
It is. It underscores the urgent need for heightened security measures in these critical sectors.
So we've talked about the increasing threats and the vulnerabilities, but there's also this huge problem with the cybersecurity workforce itself.
The talent gap is a major issue. The demand for cybersecurity professionals is skyrocketing, but there just aren't enough qualified people to fill all the open positions.
It seems like companies are struggling to find and retain talent.
Exactly. And I think part of the problem is that companies themselves are contributing to the issue.
How so?
Well, for one, hiring managers often have unrealistic expectations for entry-level roles. They're demanding years of experience, which just isn't realistic or sustainable.
Yeah, That doesn't make sense.
Right. So they end up with these lengthy hiring processes and they miss out on great candidates.
So maybe we need to rethink what we're looking for in cybersecurity professionals.
I think so. We need to place more emphasis on aptitude and soft skills like communication and teamwork.
Those are definitely important.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, those skills are just as valuable as knowing how to configure a firewall.
Right. It's about being able to solve problems and think critically.
Exactly. And companies also need to do a better job of retaining the employees they already have.
Okay, how can they do that?
It's not rocket science. Offer competitive benefits, foster a supportive work environment, provide opportunities for professional development.
It's about creating a place where people want to work and grow.
Exactly. If you want to attract and retain top talent, you have to invest in your people.
Yeah.
And they need to create clear pathways for newcomers to enter the field. High turnover rates just make this whole talent gap problem even worse.
Yeah, like a vicious cycle.
Exactly. And speaking of bad situations, there's this disturbing new trend of fake cybersecurity audits popping up.
I've heard about these. What's the deal with those?
Basically, these scammers prey on companies' desire to, improve their security.
Right.
So they pose as legitimate auditors, contact businesses offering to assess their systems.
Sounds pretty convincing.
It is, and that's the problem. Their real goal is to gain access to sensitive information and potentially even deploy malware.
So it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A very expensive wolf in sheep's clothing.
So what can companies do to protect themselves from this kind of scam?
The most important thing is verification. Always verify the credentials of anyone requesting access to your systems.
So don't just take their word for it.
Absolutely. Check references, do your due diligence. It's better to be safe than sorry.
That's good advice. And while we're on the topic of scams, stolen session cookies are another major threat these days.
Oh yeah, those are nasty little things.
But for those who don't know, what are session cookies?
They're basically small text files that websites store on your computer to remember your login information. So when you visit a site again, you don't have to re-enter your username and password.
Right. It's convenient.
It is. But it also makes you vulnerable because if hackers steal your cookies, they can bypass authentication and gain unauthorized access to your accounts.
So they're basically stealing your identity.
In a sense, yeah. And this isn't just limited to one company. Microsoft is warning users about a similar threat targeting their cloud authentication systems, including OAuth.
OAuth. That's something to do with third-party apps, right?
Right. Oath allows third-party apps to access your data on other websites. So, you can log in with your Google account or your Facebook account.
Yeah, I use that all the time.
It's convenient. But it also creates a potential attack vector. Because if attackers can compromise one of those third-party apps, they could gain access to your data on other sites.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly. They gain a foothold on one system and then use that to spread to others. They could even potentially access on-premises systems.
So it's not just about protecting your cloud accounts anymore.
Nope. We need to think about security beyond the traditional perimeter.
So what are some best practices for mitigating this risk?
Well, zero trust principles are crucial. You can't just trust anyone or anything. You need to verify every connection.
Okay.
Regular review of OAuth connections is also important. Make sure you know which apps have access to your data.
Okay.
And revoke access for any apps you no longer use or trust.
Makes-
And of course, multi-layered authentication is always a good idea. The more layers of security you have, the harder it is for attackers to break through.
It's all about making it as difficult as possible for them.
Right. You want to make yourself a less attractive target.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's some good news too, right?
There is, actually. The cybersecurity community is really stepping up to fight back against these threats.
Oh yeah? Like what?
Well, after that massive Bybit heist, they launched a bounty site to track the stolen funds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're basically crowdsourcing the hunt for these cybercriminals.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It shows that the industry is starting to take collaboration more seriously, and that's really the key to combating these sophisticated threat actors.
So it's like strength in numbers.
Exactly. And it's not just about human collaboration. AI is playing a big role, too.
Right. I've heard a lot about AI being used to create more advanced threats, but it can also be used to defend against them, right?
Absolutely. We're seeing a new wave of AI-powered SIEM solutions emerging that offer enhanced threat detection, automated investigation, and faster incident response.
So basically, AI is helping to automate a lot of the manual tasks that security teams have to deal with.
Right, because let's be honest, security teams are often completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of alerts and data they have to sift through.
Yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So AI can help to filter out the noise and identify the real threats.
So analysts can focus on the most important issues.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that AI is just a tool.
Right. It's not a silver bullet.
Nope. You still need good old-fashioned cyber hygiene, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, regular software updates, employee training. These are all still the bedrock of any robust security posture.
So it's like a layered approach. You need both the technology and the human element.
Absolutely. And speaking of the human element, we need to get real about our hiring practices in this industry.
What do you mean?
We can't keep demanding years of experience for entry-level roles. It's just not sustainable.
Right? It's unrealistic and it's shutting out a lot of talented people.
Exactly. We need to create more pathways for newcomers to enter the field. And that means focusing on aptitude and soft skills.
Yeah, like communication, problem solving, critical thinking. Those are all essential skills for any cybersecurity professional.
Absolutely. And once we get people in the door, we need to do a better job of keeping them.
Right. Retention is key.
It is. Companies need to prioritize things like competitive benefits, a supportive work environment, and opportunities for professional development.
It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued and respected.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a people business.
We can have all the technology in the world, but if we don't have the right people in place to manage it, it's all for nothing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And while we're talking about critical infrastructure, CISA has issued some warnings about flaws in industrial control systems.
Oh yeah, those are always worrisome.
These vulnerabilities could allow attackers to disrupt critical operations, compromise sensitive data, and potentially even cause system failures.
That's scary stuff.
It is. And it's not just theoretical. We've seen real-world attacks on critical infrastructure in recent years.
Right, like the Colonial Pipeline attack.
Exactly. That was a wake-up call for a lot of people.
So what can organizations do to mitigate these risks?
Well, CISA has provided some detailed guidance on this. The key takeaways are prioritize patch management, implement robust network segmentation, and embrace a zero-trust approach to security.
Zero trust seems to be coming up a lot these days.
It is. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about security because the traditional perimeter-based approach just doesn't cut it anymore.
The bad guys are already inside.
Exactly. So you need to assume that every device, every user, every connection could be compromised.
And verify everything.
Right. Trust, but verify, as the saying goes.
And of course, employee training and awareness are also crucial.
Absolutely, because a lot of these attacks rely on social engineering tactics like phishing emails and malicious links.
So if employees are trained to spot these red flags, they're less likely to fall victim.
Exactly. It's all about building that human firewall.
It's interesting to see how organizational boards are becoming more involved in cybersecurity these days.
Yeah, that's a positive development, because for too long, cybersecurity was seen as an IT issue.
Right. It was like something for the tech guys to worry about.
Exactly. But the reality is that cybersecurity is a business risk, and it needs to be treated as such.
So the board needs to be involved in overseeing the organization's security strategy.
Absolutely. And they need to make sure that adequate resources are being allocated to cybersecurity.
So the CSO needs to have a seat at the table.
Absolutely. They need to be able to communicate effectively with the board, highlight key risks, outline mitigation plans, and advocate for necessary investments.
It's about making sure that cybersecurity is aligned with the overall business objectives.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is about protecting the business.
Speaking of protecting businesses, there's been a lot of talk about Celebrate recently.
Oh yeah, the digital forensics company.
What happened there?
Well, they recently blocked Serbia from using their solution.
Why did they do that?
It came after reports that Serbian police were using Celebrate's technology to unlock and infect the phones of journalists and activists.
Oh, wow. So they were using it for surveillance purposes.
Yeah, it was pretty controversial. And Celebrate decided to take a stand.
It's interesting to see a company taking that kind of ethical stance.
It is. It raises some important questions about the use of powerful surveillance tools and the importance of responsible disclosure and vendor accountability.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also how it's used.
Exactly. Technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
It's up to us to make sure that it's used responsibly.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And while we're on the topic of ethics, there's a growing debate about whether government should have access to encrypted data through backdoors for law enforcement
Oh
purposes.
yeah, that's been a hot topic for a while now.
It has, and it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Right, because on the one hand, you have law enforcement agencies arguing that they need access to encrypted data to investigate crimes.
And on the other hand, you have privacy advocates arguing that weakening encryption would make everyone more vulnerable to cyber attacks.
It's like a tug of war between security and privacy.
Exactly. And there's no easy way to balance those two competing interests.
So where do you stand on this issue?
Personally, I believe that strong encryption is essential for protecting our privacy and security.
Okay.
I think that weakening encryption would do more harm than good.
It would make everyone more vulnerable.
Exactly. And it would undermine our fundamental right to privacy.
So you're on the side of privacy.
Yes, I am. I believe that privacy is a fundamental human right.
And it's something that we need to fight to protect.
Absolutely. And speaking of privacy, Apple has been making some interesting moves in this area.
Oh yeah. What have they been up to?
They're now offering a feature called Advanced Data Protection, or ADP, for iCloud users.
And what does that do?
It provides end-to-end encryption for most of your iCloud data, so even Apple can't access it.
Wow. That's a big deal.
It is. It's a significant step towards enhancing user privacy and protecting sensitive information.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. They're walking the walk.
So even with all these advances in security, the bad guys are still finding new ways to attack us, right?
Oh, yeah. They're always one step ahead.
Like, what's the latest threat?
Well, there's this new campaign called Get Venom that's targeting gamers and crypto investors.
Get Venom. What's that all about?
It involves creating fake GitHub repositories that mimic legitimate open source projects.
So they're basically tricking people into downloading malware.
Exactly. And it's pretty effective because GitHub is generally seen as a trusted source.
Right? So people let their guard down.
Exactly. So the lesson here is even if you're downloading software from a trusted source, you still need to be cautious.
Always double check everything.
Absolutely. Look for signs of suspicious activity, like unusual file names, obfuscated code, or a lack of community engagement.
So it's about being aware and using common sense.
Exactly. Trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
That's good advice. And speaking of things that don't feel right, attackers are still trying to crack passwords like it's going out of style.
Oh, yeah. Password cracking is still a very popular pastime for cybercriminals.
So what are they doing these days?
Well, they're using a variety of techniques, including brute force attacks, dictionary attacks, and rainbow tables.
Those all sound pretty technical.
They are, but the basic idea is the same. They're trying to guess your password.
So the message is clear? Strong, unique passwords for each of your online accounts are absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And enable multi-factor authentication whenever possible.
It's like adding an extra lock on your door.
Exactly.
It makes it much harder for the bad guys to get in.
Speaking of getting in, a new vulnerability has been discovered in the Siemens Teamcenter product lifecycle management software.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. What's the deal with that?
It's a pretty serious flaw. It could allow attackers to steal valid session data.
So basically the same thing we were talking about earlier with stolen cookies.
Right. Except this time it's not cookies, it's session data. But the outcome is the same. Attackers could potentially take over your account and gain unauthorized access to sensitive information.
And in this case, it's design and manufacturing information.
Right. Which could be very valuable to competitors or nation states.
So this is a big doubt for companies that use Siemens Teamcenter.
It is. They need to patch this vulnerability as soon as possible.
So it's all about staying up to date on patches.
Absolutely. Patching is one of the most important things you can do to protect your systems.
It's like getting your annual flu shot.
Exactly. It's preventative medicine for your computer systems.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And on a more positive note, F5 has introduced a new application delivery and security platform.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that one. What's the scoop?
It aims to simplify management for IT and security teams.
That's always a good thing. Because let's be honest, managing security can be a real headache.
It's complex and time-consuming.
Exactly. So anything that can simplify things is a welcome addition.
So what does this new platform do?
It combines high-performance load balancing, traffic management, and app and API security capabilities into a single solution.
So it's like an all-in-one security solution.
In a sense, yeah. It's designed to meet the demands of modern and AI-powered applications.
AI-powered applications. That's an interesting angle.
It is, because as we rely more and more on AI, we need to make sure that our security solutions can keep up.
Because this platform is kind of future-proofing security.
Exactly. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
And speaking of the future, There's a lot of buzz about agentic AI these days.
Oh, yeah. Agentic AI, it's all the rage.
So for those who haven't heard of it, what is the agentic AI?
It's basically AI that can autonomously take action based on high-level goals.
So it's like AI that can think for itself.
In a way, yes. It's AI that can make decisions and take actions without human intervention, which is both exciting and a little bit scary.
Right. It has the potential to revolutionize many industries, but it also introduces new risks that we need to be aware of.
Absolutely, especially in the realm of cybersecurity.
So how does agentic AI impact cybersecurity?
Well, on the one hand, it could be a powerful tool for defense. Imagine an AI system that can automatically detect and respond to threats in real time.
That would be amazing.
It would. But on the other hand, you also have to consider the possibility of agentic AI being used for malicious purposes.
So it could be used to create even more sophisticated attacks.
Exactly. And because agentic AI can operate autonomously, it could be very difficult to detect and stop these attacks.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. It's a powerful technology with the potential for both good and evil.
So what can we do to ensure that agentic AI is used responsibly?
That's the million-dollar question. I think the most important thing is to have a robust ethical framework in place.
So we need to think about the ethical implications of agentic AI before we deploy it.
Absolutely. We need to ask ourselves, what are the potential risks? What are the potential benefits? And how can we mitigate the risks while maximizing the benefits?
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And it's not going to be easy, but it's a conversation that we need to have.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. Everything from stolen cookies to hacked exchanges to vulnerable industrial systems to the cyber talent gap to agentic AI. It's clear that cybersecurity is a complex and constantly evolving challenge.
It is, and it's a challenge that affects all of us.
So what's the key takeaway for our listeners today?
Stay informed, stay vigilant, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you understand about cybersecurity, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and your organization.
Great advice. That wraps up our deep dive into today's top cyber and tech news. As always, complacency is the enemy. Stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for another insightful exploration of the digital world.